Yes, I cut my hair. Yes, Chicago and Minnesota both drafted quarterbacks. Yes, Green Bay somehow did it again. And yes, the Lions should be considered Super Bowl contenders. What's going on, guys? Dick Support here, back to another video. Today we are talking about the NFC North, a division that has seen a lot of change from this offseason. And I have a lot to break down. Let's start with the Bears. Look, we all knew it was coming. Once they got the #1 overall pick, we knew Chicago was going to take quarterback and trade Justin Fields. The shocking part is, I still feel like they could have gotten more for Fields, but they really didn't do a good job of that trade. It just wasn't terrific, but that's the only negative thing I have to say about Chicago's offseason. They got DeAndre Swift in free agency to give a running game to Williams. The offensive line they're hoping is fixed and can protect him and open up holes for Swift. They got Keenan Allen and drafted Rome Odunze to team with DJ Moore and Cole Kmet, so he has targets around him. And by the way, the defense, they should be a strong defense. I would have them at least top 15, maybe top 10. That's how good this defense can be. Montez Sweat, they got flack when that trade was made, but I'm sure Chicago fans are happy to have him. He makes that defense better. Chicago, should they be considered a playoff team? Maybe, but the only thing I think that's going to stand in their way, other than the offensive line, because we're not too sure how it's going to perform once the season starts, is Matt Eberflus. I think the fact that Matt Eberflus is still in Chicago surprised a lot of people. I think just about everyone thought that Chicago was going to start over with a new quarterback and a new head coach. And yet they didn't. They started with a new quarterback, but they kept the same head coach. Maybe they felt like with a new quarterback and new talent, maybe Eberflus can take them to the playoffs in year 3. I don't know. I don't know Chicago's thought around this. But really, for Eberflus, it's playoffs or bust, I feel like. If he doesn't make the playoffs, even if he has a winning record and they miss it because of a tiebreaker, I still feel like if they can't get to the playoffs, he's going to be gone by 2025. That's just how I feel about that. I could be wrong. I could be, but I feel like Chicago has built it to where they can compete again. I could definitely see this team in the playoffs. I could also see them being in last place in this division, but that's only because this division could be very strong if things play out the way they could play out. Speaking of which, let's go to Detroit. Okay, I'm still trying to figure out how Detroit pulled this off. They traded away Matthew Stafford. They were one of the worst teams in 2021. Then they started off really bad in 2022, but then found some life, knocked the Packers out of the playoffs in the final game to give them a winning record, and then won the division in 2023, got to the NFC Championship game, was leading at halftime, came this close to getting to their first Super Bowl ever, and yet you could make the argument that they are a better team than they were the year before. Their biggest issue was in the secondary, especially with Cam Sutton no longer there after, well, I'm not going to get into that, but they addressed it right away. Their first 2 picks were corners, and the fact that those corners fell to where they were, I still don't know how that happened. Really, how the defensive players fell in the draft, I still don't get it. However, yeah, Detroit, they are going to be very good, possibly for a long time. I mean, Jared Goff just got a contract extension. So did Penei Sewell. So did Amon-Ra St. Brown. They are signing their guys. They have a great 1-2 combo at running back with Montgomery and Gibbs. Jared Goff, as I mentioned, contract extension. He has just found a second wind of his career. The Lions did a great job turning his career around. St. Brown, he's one of the best receivers in the game. Jameson Williams is probably a breakout candidate this year. He was recovering from a torn ACL his rookie season. He was suspended for the first few games of the season in his second year. I think he's ready for a breakout. Hopefully he is. If he can become the Robin to St. Brown's Batman, that is pretty scary. Don't forget about their tight end. Sam Laporta had a terrific rookie season. Only greatness is ahead for him if he can maintain that. And then Gibbs, Jack Campbell, They did a great job utilizing their picks the last few years. I mean, you're talking about a Penei Sewell, you're talking Jahmyr Gibbs, you're talking Jack Campbell, of course Laporta, and again, if Williams can break out, oh man, that is just going to add another dangerous element to this Lions team. And I didn't even get into Aiden Hutchinson and what he's done for this team. Is it Super Bowl or bust for the Lions? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know, but I'd be shocked if they can't find a way to get to one in the next 5 years. I'm going to be honest. If they can't find a way to get to one in the next 5 years, I don't know what I'm going to think. Okay, so let me get this straight. The Packers in 2005 drafted Aaron Rodgers to be the heir apparent to Brett Favre. 3 years later, Favre is traded to the Jets. Rodgers takes over, is amazing right away. Then in 2020, the same team drafted Jordan Love in the first round to take over for Aaron Rodgers once Aaron Rodgers leaves Green Bay. 3 years later, Rodgers gets traded to the Jets. Love takes over, struggles in the first half of the season, and then the second half probably played better than any other quarterback in the NFL. Packers go to the playoffs, are the 7th seed. They not only beat the Cowboys, they dominate the Cowboys on the road, and were this close to getting to the NFC Championship game to face off against the Detroit Lions. I don't think you could have written a better script for the Packers season than that. Okay, maybe get into the Super Bowl, but that was still an amazing season. No one saw that coming. I thought if Jordan Love could just have some promise, maybe put in a few good games consecutively, they'd be on the right track. Not to have the season that he did, specifically the second half of the season that they did, to where they could get to the playoffs, dominate the Cowboys, and give the 49ers a good run for their money. I don't know how that happened, and yet it did. That is crazy. No one saw it coming, and yet Packers fans, they are just happy that it happened the way they did. Packers are definitely a team on the rise, and now they have a new running back in Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs, he's coming from the Raiders, and when he was on, he was one of the best running backs in the NFL. The problem was he was stuck on the Raiders, and the Raiders, well, as we all know, they are not great at making decisions. So now he moves to the Packers offense, who they're hoping he's going to add another dimension to it. Now, Aaron Jones is gone. Aaron Jones, he was one of the veteran leaders of the Packers team, but to Brandon Jacobs, they had to cut him. More where he went later. Hopefully, it does work out for them. And then you got to talk about this wide receiver core. It seemed like every single month, a new receiver was stepping up. It was Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, sorry. It was crazy just how, as soon as the month turned, another receiver stepped up. That's both a good and a bad thing, because while the Packers don't necessarily have a true number one guy, they do have guys that can take over a game at any point. Which one do you like better? That's up to you. But we'll see how this receiving core does during 2024. But, man, Packers, this could be an exciting year for you. You're going to give the Lions a good run for their money while trying to take the division back from them. So Kirk Cousins is no longer with the Minnesota Vikings, and once he signed with the Falcons, we knew they were going to go quarterback in the first round. The only question was going to be, did they have to trade up into the top 5 to get one of the quarterbacks? Well, as it turned out, no, they only had to trade up one spot to number 10 to get J.J. McCarthy out of Michigan. And my biggest issue with McCarthy is I just don't know what his ceiling is, or really what his floor is. Just because he wasn't asked to do a whole lot in Michigan. You can see the talent that's there, but they didn't ask him to use it as much because Michigan arguably had one of the greatest teams ever seen on a college football field. That's how good they were. They had one of the greatest offensive lines. They had maybe the best running back in all college football last year, a very good receiving core. He doesn't necessarily have all of that in Minnesota. The offensive line is solid. I'll say their offensive line is solid. He does have Justin Jefferson, who just signed a new contract. Jordan Addison, when TJ Hawkinson gets back, he's one of the best young tight ends in the league. And they just got Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones signed with the Vikings, one of the Packers' biggest rivals. I'm willing to think revenge was on his mind a little bit. But coming into the NFL, McCarthy is going to have to be asked to do more than what he did at Michigan, and there is a question on whether he can handle that. I'm in a wait-and-see mode with him. I feel like he is set for success as a rookie. Just how much success, we shall see. Another thing with the Vikings is they not only lost Cousins, they also lost Danielle Hunter. Danielle Hunter is gone. Not only that, they lost another edge rusher in DJ Wonnum. And they replaced him with Jonathan Griard, who had a breakout season last year with the Texans, and then they drafted Dallas Turner with the 17th overall pick. Turner, a lot of people had as the top edge guy in the draft. I was one of them. So the Vikings are hoping that these new pieces can hope for a quick turnaround and they can get back to the playoffs, because once Kirk Cousins went down, that was it for their season. They struggled right after he got hurt. If he doesn't get hurt, could they have snuck into a wild card? I don't know. I'm not going to try to guess on that. But the Vikings are really hoping that they can get back to the playoffs. And really for Kevin O'Connell, I don't know what's going to happen if they can't get back to the playoffs. And really, I don't know what to expect from this team. Could we expect them to compete for the division? If everything goes right, maybe. Could we expect them to fall off the edge of a cliff? If everything goes wrong, maybe. This is really a team where it's unpredictable what's going to happen. Not as unpredictable as other teams, but because of the question marks surrounding the rookie quarterback, trying to replace Danielle Hunter, who's one of the best edge rushers in the NFL, just question mark on the offensive line, whether they can hold up having a rookie quarterback. There's a lot to digest with the Vikings, and it's not going to be answered until the season starts. Alright guys, those are my thoughts on the NFC North. Next up is going to be the AFC South, a division I cannot wait to break down. And as always, I'll see you guys next time.